Public briefing. First, I'd like to remind the great residents of this great city that anyone else who has an overdue parking ticket, they've received here from the city, that the city is offering amnesty on the penalties applied to overdue parking citations. Those who currently owe money for parking tickets and overdue penalties prior to May 2nd will have those penalties waived as long as they pay the original amount by September 12th. Now, this is the city being generous. It doesn't happen every year. So, now if you still have to pay your original ticket, this is not parking ticket amnesty. This is amnesty on the dues or on the penalties that are owed. But if you got the ticket before May 2nd, you pay the original amount before September 12th, we will waive those penalties. All right? If you don't pay by September 12th, then both the original amount and all the penalties are still due. Lastly, the amnesty on penalties do not apply to tickets you received after May 2nd. You got to pay attention to the deal here, everyone. After May 2nd, you get a ticket after May 2nd, you don't qualify. So if you've got a ticket this week, my advice is that you pay that ticket on time. As you know, we have requested and received and spent millions on federal, state, and local funds to help us recover from COVID-19. This is just one way. We're trying to lift some of the burden off of the shoulders of some of our residents here in the city. So for more information, please go to rva.gov, obviously. Visit the Public Works page there, Department of Public Works, or you can dial Citizen Service in response at 311. All right? You got any outstanding tickets, Mr. Campus? Dr. Ray? You sure? How are you? Outstanding tickets? Suarez?
I'll plead the fifth.
He pleads the fifth. All right, so folks, if you're out there, you got some outstanding tickets before May 2nd, you qualify for parking ticket penalty amnesty. So please go out there and take advantage of this offer and the generosity of the great city of Richmond. Now let's switch gears and talk a little about COVID-19. As you know, we started these public briefings over 2 years ago, if you can believe it, over 2 years ago. We started these public briefings as a response to the pandemic and in the effort to keep all of our residents informed of the progress of this deadly disease. And we wanted to inform the public of our collective actions to limit the spread of this disease. Our friends and partners at the Richmond City Health District have been with us every step of the way. And if it's one thing we've all had to learn, it's that COVID-19 is still with us. It's still here. And it's still important for us to take proper steps to protect ourselves, our families, and our communities. It should not be forgotten by anyone in this room, and no one in this country should forget the fact that we are approaching 1 million deaths from COVID-19 in the United States of America. And unfortunately, more than 500 of our fellow Richmonders have lost their lives because of COVID-19. So, as is our custom here, I'm going to request a moment of silence in remembrance of those 500 plus residents we've lost to this terrible disease. Thank you. As always, we are joined by our friends from the Richmond Henrico Health District. Today we're joined by Dr. Melissa Beret, the acting director of the district. She's going to update the public on our current public health status. We're talking about subvariants. We're talking about current transmission rates, talking about vaccines, boosters, you name it, Dr. Vray has the information. So, Dr. Vray.
Forgot I had my mask on. Okay. Thanks, y'all, for being here today. I'm here to talk about a little bit about COVID, where we are right now. The CDC COVID-19 community level for Richmond is low. That is good. We've been in this for a little while now, and that's allowed us to return to a little more of the life that we've been accustomed to, unlike the last couple of years. We have, over the past several weeks, we have been seeing a slow and steady increase in our cases. This is likely related to the appearance of the Omicron BA.2 subvariant that became more prevalent and is now the dominant variant in the U.S. However, what's important to note is that hospitalizations for COVID have remained stable here in Richmond, in the Richmond metro area, and actually it's much lower than we saw during the Omicron surge in January. It's pretty close to the lows that we saw last summer. So this is actually really good news. So I think we will need to continue to watch our hospitalizations and continue to watch our cases, but overall, we're in a better place than we were in the winter. I think it is important to speak a little bit more about variants, subvariants, and sub-subvariants. We've been hearing a lot about them in the news recently. So as I mentioned, the subvariant of Omicron BA.2 continues to be the dominant variant in the U.S. It makes up about 62% of our cases nationally, it's estimated to be, and it's about that, maybe 60% in our region. A subvariant of BA.2, sub-subvariant, BA.2.12.1. You might recall you've heard about this in cases in New York City or in New York State. Is actually becoming more prevalent here in the U.S. It's now estimated to comprise maybe 37% of our cases nationally, so that is increasing across the U.S. I'm not necessarily seeing it here locally, but that doesn't mean it's not already here. We don't sequence every test that we get. We're also keeping an eye on Omicron variants across the world. In South Africa, we're seeing Omicron subvariants BA.4 and BA.5, which are actually becoming more prevalent there in South Africa, and we're keeping an eye for what that might mean for us here. I think the key takeaway with all these subvariants and sub-subvariants, whether they're Omicron BA.1, BA.2, BA.2.12.1, XE, XD, whatever, we will continue to see variants and subvariants as people continue to get infected. What the important thing about what's currently circulating in the U.S. is, while there may be more transmissibility, we aren't seeing as severe, the severity that we were seeing before. There still seems to be fewer hospitalizations for infection compared to what we saw with Delta and with the original SARS-CoV-2 infections way back in 2020. This is good. We'll need to continue to monitor it, but I do think that overall this is good news. It is important that we continue to monitor as well the surge that we see, because right now it's slow. But if that continues to increase, if we see something that increases like Omicron did in January, we might see more hospitalizations that cripple our healthcare system. But hopefully, with vaccination, with some natural immunity, and with some basic precautions that we're taking, we can avoid what we saw in January. Speaking of precautions, I think right now, again, we're in low. It's great. It's still a good time, since cases are increasing, to be thinking about what we need to do to prevent further cases and further infections and further bad outcomes. For us in Richmond and Henrico Health District, we are standing up additional test sites to withstand any further increase in cases. We're not seeing a lot of demand right now, but we are present in case it does occur. Finding testing opportunities is easy at our website, rchd.com, or at our hotline, 804-205-3501. We're still distributing at-home tests. We've distributed more than 20,000 tests this year alone. We're also encouraging folks to go ahead and be ready at home, have tests at home in case you need them, in case you've been exposed, in case you have symptoms. You can get them through the government at covidtest.gov. You can get them in pharmacies. And we also are still stocking some Richmond public libraries with at-home tests if you need them for free. We're continuing to do that for as long as we're able to, and as long as folks are still taking them. Masks. We're in low. masks aren't required. However, a lot of folks are still going to wear masks because they may have personal reasons to. If you're like me, you're habitual, and if you're wearing a mask in your last meeting, you may end up wearing it the rest of the day and not even think about it. There's nothing wrong with wearing a mask. We are not required to. I will say that CDC continues to recommend wearing masks in public transit, even if it's not mandated, simply because you're going to be in close proximity to a lot of different people you don't know very well. You're going to be in close proximity for periods of time while you're on mass transit, so they do still recommend that people mask. It's just not required anymore by the federal government. A couple other things. I did want to talk about vaccine, though. Vaccine is available. I wish more people would take advantage of it. I think right now is the best time, while we're in low, while we're waiting for the new variants, subvariants, subvariants to come this way. Still a good time to go ahead and get that vaccine, especially for our most vulnerable. We are looking forward to when vaccine will be available for our youngest, our under fives. That should be coming. We're hoping that's going to be coming in the summer, perhaps as early as June. We will need to wait for FDA and for CDC and their advisory committees to evaluate all of the evidence submitted by Pfizer and Moderna before we see what happens with that. But if those get authorized, we will go ahead and make them available all alongside pediatricians and all those other folks who we've been working with throughout this whole pandemic to get vaccine out there. I think it's also important to remind folks that we are still out there vaccinating. We have upcoming events at Saturday at Sacred Heart from 10:30 to 2:30, and this coming Tuesday at Southwood Pool Home from 4 to 6 p.m. They're free. We, just go ahead and walk on up if it's convenient to you. We also have our at-home vaccines, meaning not at-home vaccines. We'll come to you. In other words, we have a mobile at-home vaccine thing. Just contact us and we will arrange, we will come to you if you're not able to come to us, or if it's not convenient to come to us. We just want to get you vaccinated. It is also important that we have, I know that folks are thinking about, if you have gotten your first series and you've gotten your booster, folks who are 50 and over, and some other folks are thinking, is it time to get that second booster? It's fine to get your second booster. It's absolutely okay to get it if you're eligible. If you're not, if you're thinking if you want to wait, that's also okay too. I would just encourage that if you're going to go into an area with if you're going to be traveling on public transport, if you're going to be going into an area with a lot of transmission, it might not be a bad idea to go ahead and get that second booster. I just want to nod into two things, if Mayor Stoney will allow me to do so, that aren't coded. I just want to nod to our, this is also, thanks to Mayor Stoney. Our Health Equity Fund has launched a community advisory committee to help us make decisions in terms of how we are allocating our funding so that this Health Equity Fund can be allocated with community engagement. Since our opening 2 weeks ago, we've received over 50 applications to be part of this Health Equity Fund Community Advisory Committee. We are hoping that others will apply, so please, if you're interested, if you know someone from the community who would like to or has an interest in being a part of this decision making, please encourage them to apply. We are hoping to get folks onboarded and selected by June. Last but not least, we did launch this week our Opioid Spike Alert, which is in coordination with the City of Richmond alongside Henrico and Chesterfield, and our fire and Richmond Ambulance Authority agencies are currently doing Spike Alert. In other words, they're monitoring for any blips or any increases or spikes in opioid overdose calls. And when they see those and they identify them, they will call us, and we will announce it on our social media platforms and on a listserv that you can sign up to be part of on rhhe.gov/spikealert, SPIKEALERT.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rha. Thank you for the full update today, and we appreciate the good work from the Richmond Health District. Now, finally, as some of you may be aware, this week is National Teacher Appreciation Week. Outside of our own families, few people have greater impact on our lives than our teachers. They do so much for us and teach us not only just in the classroom, but also outside the classroom as well, lessons that I've taken with me through my journey as mayor. Now, I know I wouldn't be here without the efforts of my teachers. There's many I still actually keep in touch with from my elementary school, middle school, high school days, and I'm grateful for their support and their efforts over the course of many, many years. So today I am proud to mark this week by issuing a proclamation. I don't have a lot of powers as mayor, but one of the powers I do have, Mr. Cameron, says I have the power to proclaim. And so today I have Jason Cameron with us, the superintendent of Richmond Public Schools, a former teacher and a former national teacher of the year, in fact. Jason has tirelessly worked on behalf of all of our children, not just here, but also your time working in Washington, D.C. as well. And I know most teachers are actually in the classroom right now teaching, doing their part to support our young people. But on behalf of my administration, I want to say I'm thankful. Thankful for their efforts, thankful for what they've had to deal with over the course of the last few years with the pandemic. They have been a lifeline for many of our young people here in the great city of Richmond. So, whereas the success of the city of Richmond begins in our classrooms, where our teachers work tirelessly to educate and empower the next generation, and whereas teachers are far more than instructional leaders, they are mentors, coaches, supporters, cheerleaders, counselors, and heroes who selflessly give of their love, time, talent, and energy, and resources to help their students survive and thrive. Now, therefore, I, Rha M. Stoney, on behalf of the great city of Richmond, do hereby proclaim May 1st through May 7th, 2022 as Teacher Appreciation Week in the city of Richmond, and encourage all residents to express their appreciation for our teachers. Mr. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll get a quick picture. Take it away. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your continued support of Richmond Public Schools, including supporting approximately 20% in raises over the last 4 budgets. This year, 5%, and because of our federal stimulus, a $3,000 bonus for our teachers as well. We wish we could do even more. We will continue to endeavor to do more, but that has made a huge impact in our teachers' lives. I also want to just say thank you to all of our teachers. I had the great pleasure of spending time with our 5 finalists for RPS Teacher of the Year earlier this morning, and I just want to share their names and their schools with you. Miss Smith at Miles Jones Elementary, Miss Thompson at Bouchal Middle School, Mr. Billups at Armstrong High School, Mr. Kennedy at Fairfield Court Elementary, and Miss Johnson at Henry Marsh Elementary. So a big shout out to our 5 finalists. Tomorrow we will be announcing our 2022 RPS Teacher of the Year, so look for that in all of your news outlets. As I have often said, great teaching is magical, but it's not magic. It takes hard work, persistence, creativity, perseverance, empathy, and of course, love. And those are the qualities that our teachers here at Richmond Public Schools demonstrate each and every day. And so on behalf of the system, I just want to say thank you. We are grateful to you. We love you. We appreciate you. And happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. And Mr. Cameron, let me make sure I get this correct. Since we started working together over the course of the last few years, since I took office in 2017, starting teacher pay was what, $52,000 when I took office in 17. And after the city council approves of the budget on Monday night, we'll get up to $64,000, I believe.
Average teacher pay?
Average teacher pay. So average teacher pay was $52,000 when my administration began. I'm proud to say after the city council approves it on Monday night, our budget, the average teacher pay in Richmond Public Schools will be $64,000. It's a $12,000 increase over the course of 5.5 years. Very, very proud of that. This is a community that values its teachers, and I appreciate the partnership with Richmond Public Schools. With that, we'll take some questions.
Chris.
Okay, so 2 different questions. First off, just following up on questions we've asked last week or 2 weeks ago about GRTC and zero fare. Sounds as if the GRTC Board of Directors is going to be finding its own money from its funds to pay for it next year. But beyond that, you committed to maintaining zero fare through the rest of your term, so that's 2 more years or so. Are you committed to increasing the funding for GRTC to match the state grant following this upcoming fiscal year to make sure that zero fare stays?
The question is whether or not I'm committed to maintaining zero or fare-free rides at GRTC. Yes, I remain committed.
To increasing the funding to make sure that they can match the state grant for it.
For this year's budget or for?
For, I guess, 24 and 25.
Well, I'm not going to, we haven't gotten into budget season. We just approved the budget for the upcoming fiscal year this year. We are obviously going to get into budget talks. I would hate to overcommit my administration to without seeing the dollars for the future, but we will do everything that's possible to ensure that GRTC has everything it needs to be a fare-free organization and allow for our riders to ride free.
And the second thing I wanted to ask is about RHA and evictions. State rent relief program deadline to apply is coming to an end here. I believe RHA says they've still got about 1,600 of their households behind on rent. They're doing a blitz right now to try to get people applied, but I've heard from at least one councilwoman, Thad Williamson, former policy advisor to your administration, that they're concerned that RHA hasn't exactly been proactive enough until now to get people applied and their paperwork in. And they're fearing that there's going to be a big surge in evictions and homelessness come this summer. So I wanted to ask your administration, is this something that is a concern that's been brought to your attention, and is there anything your administration is doing to try to help RHA and prevent evictions?
The question was, is there anything that the administration doing to help our RHA prevent evictions? There's a deadline coming up when it comes to the rent relief that's been offered by the Commonwealth. And I will say this, we are partners with RHA. We have utilized our employees, whether it's our ambassadors to go door to door to help get the word out. We stand ready to help further as well in the use of employees and resources over here. RHA, they have, I think, at times gone above and beyond. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Williamson. They've knocked on the doors. They've called. They've emailed. They've sent letters. My grandmother would say, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And right now, we have some folks who are either evading or avoiding speaking with RHA officials and the team there. I asked that you print this, Chris, that if you receive any contact from RHA, please respond. Please respond. There's no reason right now, as this money is available from the state to keep people in their homes, that you should not answer the phone, not answer the door, not answer the emails. And so it's my hope that folks heed this suggestion and do what they can on their end to respond to RHA's outreach. And I'm glad that RHA is doing everything they can, to reach people. And that's, I don't want to see anyone evicted, bottom line. But also, I do know that RHA is doing everything they can to reach people.
We were just at Gilpin earlier this morning. We heard from some residents that they feel like RHA has not exactly been responsive when they've had questions or have tried to reach them, in response to the emails and letters they've received. or they haven't received confirmation that their application was approved or not. So they're kind of a little bit afraid that if something went wrong, they could end up with an eviction notice pretty soon. What about those folks? You're saying that some folks are not answering RHA, but for those folks who are worried.
For those folks who are worried because they believe the RHA has not answered their calls, then the RHA needs to do what I just requested the residents to do, right? You got to do their part in answering and responding to the questions as well. And so we all could always do a little bit more. And I'm asking for the residents to do a little bit more, and I'm asking for RHA to do a little bit more as well.
Hi, Mayor Stoney. So I know the city has said that pre-planning is underway for the Monument Avenue project, and I understand with the transfer of the lease circle from the state to the city, it kind of paved the way for the city to take ownership of the reimagined Monument Avenue project. But it seems as though the general Richmond public and even city council members have said that they were vastly unaware of the changes to the project. Do you think that the city could have better communicated the changes and leadership of this project? And can you speak to why council says they weren't briefed on this matter?
First, Tyler is asking about changes to the project. What changes happened to the project?
The change in leadership of the project.
I'm glad you said that. The change in leadership from the project. So there was a paper, an ordinance that was put forward before the city council that talked about transferring the Lee Monument, which was owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we conveyed it to the Black History Museum for disposition. And so that was all talked about right here in this room that you're in right now. So many were aware of the change.
Right, the change of the
ownership,
the circle. Right, but still, people didn't understand that the city took ownership of the project of reimagining Monument Avenue instead of VMFA.
Oh, so remember, the VMFA was a part of a state-led effort under Governor Northam.
Yes.
And at the end of Governor Northam's term, he transferred the land to us. Now, remember, the VMFA does not work for the city of Richmond. The VMFA works for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And so they were removed by the administration, not by the city, from the project. The city will make every intention to reach out to folks there in the neighborhood and at large to ensure that their feedback is taken in the reimagining process. However, the city does not control who is involved with the project. Alex Nargis, the team over at VMFA, don't work for the city of Richmond. They work for Governor Youngkin and the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, for those who are unaware on city council, I can't go home and do the homework for all our city council members. That's not something we can do.
But do you agree that residents, people who live in Richmond, because they've been asking us these questions too, they were unaware about the changes?
They may have been unaware, Tyler, but it is not the city's responsibility to do the Commonwealth's job. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right, but you can tell the residents that the city is taking control of the project.
And we did right here in this chamber when we said we would lead the reimagining efforts. The Commonwealth of Virginia were leading these efforts. And at the end of the Governor Northam's term, he turned over the property to us, and we would lead the efforts. Now, I don't know why there wasn't a press release that went out that said VMFA would not be leading it from the Commonwealth's level, but we always said that we would team up with the Black History Museum to take the next steps forward, to engage the public, particularly the voices in the neighborhood.
Okay, so you think that the city did a good job of communicating this to the public?
Yeah, the city did everything that we were supposed to do.
So what can residents expect now moving forward?
Well, first, I've said it on record in the past, I believe that we need to take a breath, right? I'm glad to see that there are no longer any pedestals, there are no longer monuments, except for Arthur Ashe on Monument Avenue. This has occupied the time of the city for a very, very long time. I think that we need to take a breath, take a step back. We are in pre-planning processes right now, getting that next step ready. And when we do finish that pre-planning process, we will engage the community that lives right there on Monument Avenue and the community at large. So what I'm asking for is just a little patience. Take a step back, have a little patience. I want us to have the same patience with this project as we've had with the development of a heritage campus in Chocolate Bottom to memorialize the enslaved. If we can have so much patience there, we should have enough patience to at least give the city some time to take the next steps forward on Monument Avenue.
And patience as in several months, maybe a couple years.
You know, it may take months. I can't put a timeline on it, but it may take some time. It's taking a lot of years to memorialize the enslaved in Chocolate Bottom. The city has a lot of work to do on both fronts. I'm asking for a little patience.
Chris, you good? Mayor, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Question, yeah.